right. You know what time it is. It is Monday night, live in the Counselor's Corner. I am your host, David Lorenzo Glover, aka the Controversial Counselor. Joining me is my co-host, the Big Bad Wolf, Herb Lewis.
Ow!
You know what that sound is? He on one tonight. Please pull up. If you would like to join the panel, we will be here waiting for you. Recap from this past Monday's show, The State of the Counselor's Corner. Please go back and watch the replay on the YouTube channel, The Controversial Counselor, as well as the highlighted reels on FB, IG, TikTok, and YouTube. Moving right along to tonight, May 6th. The topic we will be discussing is the impact of childhood trauma on relationships. Yeah, and we know that many of us went through some type of trauma, but it's all about the way that you handle it. So this is why we have a lot of struggles and stuff, and we're gonna get into a variety of aspects of how that plays. We will be covering the meaning of childhood trauma, which basically is significantly distressing experience you may have been exposed to as a child, certain things you went through. Example, physical violence. You may have seen your mother and father fighting, a lot of violence in your home, sexual abuse, loss of a loved one, abandonment, foster care, or any other event where you felt scared, helpless, horrified, or overwhelmed. This is real, people. This is real. That's why that's the importance of talking when you're dating to kind of find out the history or asking the right questions, which in July Herb got the book coming out, The Big Bad Wolf. Now, yeah, I'm
Yes,
leaning
sir.
on you that you have to ask questions. But I know before we've heard people say, "Oh, it don't really matter. That was dead. That was dead. That was the past. I don't worry about that." Yeah, okay, okay. That's why some of y'all end up being refrigerated, if you know what that means. Finding your damn body in the deep freezer down in the basement somewhere because you didn't ask questions. I know that might be to the extremes, a rare case, but it happens. We would discuss again the attachment styles. And that's, a reoccurring thing that keeps coming up: secure, preoccupied, dismissive, avoidant, and fearful, avoidant. Finally, we would cover communication styles. Some people are passive, some people are passive aggressive, and there's some people that's just plain old aggressive. Oh yeah, let me not forget about the trauma reenactment and emotional intelligence. So as you can see, we have a loaded plate. Please like and share our video, and don't forget to subscribe to the YouTube channel, The Controversial Counselor. We still sitting at 863 subs. No movement, but always moving forward. So here we are tonight, Monday. A lot going on in the world. It's a lot going on. Period. Man, I'm just happy to be here and to cover this subject matter because again, trauma is real, and we can dismiss it. We can sweep it under the rug. Uh, Probably the best thing to do is to talk about it. And I always say, if you don't, secrets keep you sick. So if you're someone that kind of always skated by, but never shared or talked about any of that, it's gonna come out. That mask always comes off in some shape or form. So hey, that's where we at. So other than that, uh, one thing I could say, sometimes I put myself through trauma by doing a quick turnaround, going to the Cataract City, Niagara Falls. to support my nephew and niece for their birthday celebrations. Anytime my sister puts something together, I know it's gonna be lit, be on fire. So I decided to do a turnaround. That's trauma for me at this age. Uh,
Yeah.
go, going somewhere, hanging out, and then getting back up, driving again. But usually I would take a couple days off, maybe like a Friday and a Monday, but because everything that's going on at the school with testing and other people not coming to work, eh, so I didn't have that luxury, but I didn't want to I didn't want to miss the opportunity to spend time with family, which is again valuable as we get older, and we keep we talk about this often. If it's in your power to be able to make something happen, then try to make it happen if
Yeah.
the resources are there. Because again, always talk about time is life is short, time is short, and you just never know. So I always try to make it happen. So that's what I got going on. Of course, the schoolhouse is crazy as hell. It's like less than 30 days left of school. So you know, got teachers
Yeah.
checked out, kids checked out. Some of them shouldn't be checked out, but they are. And guess what? We still got new kids coming in, coming in. Go figure. Like, how do you have kids enrolling at a school with less than 30 days left? But you know why? Because we about to get a brand new shiny building, and people want to be up in that joint, so
Yeah.
they are willing to do what they got to do. But that's that. My little spill before we get going. What's good with you, Herb?
Man, I got a chance to kick it with my man, my main man, one of my men. I got, I'm blessed. It's never lost upon me. I got a, a an ardent crew of men, and when I say an ardent crew of men, they have families, they have children. I'm probably the only one of the crew that's not married and or doesn't have children. So I sit back and look at them, and I'm like, y'all doing the thing, man. Y'all buying houses, investing, taking care of your kids. One of my man has grandchildren, so I saw my man, and I was down in the city, and I said, I'm jealous. He said, why? I said, because you got gray hair. He said, you jealous of this? I said, yeah, man. He said, man, he said, don't be. Because for me, it's a sign, you know, of not only growth, maturity, but that you're worrying about things that are almost beyond your control. And that's what parents do. Some people might call it a luxury. I don't have the burden of having to worry about those type of things. Yes, I worry about my brothers and sisters. I worry about my family, my really good friends, but it's a different type of worry. I worry if something happens to them, not if they're gonna be okay. So it's few and far between for me that I worry about are people I'm associated with, friends with, family, gonna be okay. So for me, it's a different aspect, of my life because I'm, statistically speaking, I got a foot in the grave. I'm 52. The only thing I need to worry about is keeping a roof over my head, taking care of my cats. I got a brother, two brothers in the city. One's, on his way to retirement. The other's doing all right. My nieces and nephews, they're my nieces and nephews. I don't have any day-to-day contact with them mainly because I work midnight. So everything I do is the opposite of everybody else. So I have to really get out there and make a concerted effort. So, with those things said, the brothers, and I affectionately refer to, my remaining siblings as the brothers. We planned a fishing trip for about 3 or 4 days. We can get away. This is probably going to be the first time in about 7 years that I've actually done something, and that includes family reunions. We generally have one every year where everybody gets together. No matter where we're from, we all descend on a pre-selected location, 3 or 4 days, food, family, fun, and games. So I need to be more involved in that. As David said, the finances don't always match up, and I need to do about $10,000 to $15,000 worth of home improvements. So I'm going to try and make a lot of stuff happen this year. And like Dave said, the book, everything is pretty much planned except for the artwork. I need to get an editor, and I believe I'm going to self-publish. Now, the only thing I really need to concern myself with self-publishing is, do I want to um do ebooks? I don't know. I'm still on the fence with that. So we'll see how that shakes out. But I really don't have any complaints, man. The complaints I have, compared to what other people, they're not even worth mentioning or writing down. Dave mentioned about what's going on in other parts of the world. For those of you who are in the geopolitics, we know what's going on in the Middle East. We've been to what's going on in the Ukraine. We don't have to deal with any of that. The worst thing this country has to deal with, migrant issues. And I had seen posted a link on budget cuts for the school district in Buffalo. They're talking about 30, 40 people might be losing their jobs. It's getting real out here, people. We talked about it a couple of weeks ago, the future of education. If you have kids, you grandkids, start planning. It's probably going to get a lot rougher before it gets better.
And that, folks, is that's part of trauma. Inval 616 said society encourages trauma in kids because it creates dedicated military personnel. It's an interesting perspective. And I do believe society does create trauma in kids as well as adults. But again, I think it's how you move with all that.
Yeah.
It doesn't. It's okay to be a certain way, or feel a certain way, but it's what you do about it.
Yeah.
Like some people are automatically triggered over certain things that it's obvious that anybody could get to them, or they know the buttons to push, and they use it. But sometimes you just gotta. I always say you gotta keep people guessing. You can't show your hand right away because people take advantage of that, and you have to be mindful who you share things with, because people will hold that against you as
Mm-hmm.
well. So so when we look at this whole childhood trauma thing, you know, like I mentioned, it's certain things that cause kids that go through trauma. Whether again, whether it's physical violence, again, it could be shit a natural disaster, um, just things that worried or preoccupied. Like I said, abandonment. Um, and we know that there's parents that you know may not probably shouldn't have been parents, but they have kids and they know that they're not going to give them a great standard of care, and kids could be let. Some kids go all over the place. They with every family member. They all
Yeah.
over, and they really don't. And they're always worried, or with the preoccupied thoughts about, like, man, I'm here right now and this is safe and secure, but I know that shit, maybe a week later, 2 weeks later, I'm gonna be somewhere else. And some people do that to children. uh Again, so much. Got a few folks coming in. I'm gonna bring them in a minute. So again, sexual abuse, that's definitely real, because a lot of times that happened with probably somebody close to the family or in the family. It's just not random people. Well, now in this day and age with social media and stuff like that, people have access to kind of figure out where people are at, because we have the tendency of posting our every move. So people take advantage of that. But probably before that, it was probably someone that's probably been in your house, in your home, chilling, and probably somebody. I was all sitting around, adults sitting around drinking,
Hmm.
and shit, and they was plotting. What else? What else? Loss of loved ones. Some people never rebound when they lose someone. I could say I think my father went through a lot of trauma once. My grandmother had passed. Once she left this earth, he was never the same again. He just went down a slippery slope and never probably was strong enough mentally to do it. But he never rebounded, never came back from it. So it's real. So I'm just waiting. I'm just putting the little things on the plate. We'll carry on. So you know me, I don't like to tie up with all the conversation. So I always try to keep it short and sweet. Then want to chime back in. But I just wanted to throw that out there right now.
And speaking of the loss of loved ones, granted, I have never physically met the man, but we are around the anniversary of Kevin Samuels passing. Now, for a lot of people, he didn't mean much. He was a misogynist, but for a lot of men who had a who had something to say but didn't have a voice, he was that voice. So I remember, when O'Shea broke the news, and I was at work. It was a Monday night, ironically, and I think it was a Monday night, either Monday night, Tuesday morning, anyway. And I remember just being just numb, like nothing existed. I wasn't sure if it was real. I wasn't sure if it was just some prank. And then other sources started reporting the same thing, and it was, and my mother had died, a few years prior, and it was just it wasn't even the same thing. It was like the woman who gave me life, who brought me into this world, who I put everything aside for 6 months to wait on, hand and foot, fed her, made sure she bathed, got her exercise. It was almost surreal. Like it didn't even compare. It didn't compute. It was just like this cannot be occurring. And even then, I try and deaden the the feeling that I get when I think about his passing. Then my sister last year. So, you know, it takes a piece out of you, and I've often talk about, my cat. And some people say it was just an animal. I had that animal for 16 years. So when I buried that cat, a piece of me went with that cat. So, you know, it's like David said, it's not having trauma, it's how you carry it, because we all do in some way, shape, or form. One of the things mentioned was foster care. I can speak at length about that. People ask me, why were you in foster care? At the particular time, there's a lot of different reasons. And like David said about his grandfather, when his grandmother died, he was never the same. It was true for me when my aunt died. That's when things just really broke up for us, because she was pretty much, her and my older brother, they were the glue that kept us, from being piecemealed out in foster care. And when that happened, I remember where I was staying at. I remember the day, the church that we had her funeral at still stands. And every time I go by there, that's the first thought I have. So, I mean, every day, we get up as a chance to heal, improve, address some issues. And however an individual does that, that's up to them. So people self medicate. So people go to therapy. Whatever you do, so long as it helps, do it.
All right. Before I bring Lasagna on, if she wants to speak, then I'll bring in Dr. Anwar. But shout out to Dr. Daphne for bringing home that award, one of those Teacher of the Year. I don't know the exact title, something to do with excellence, but congratulations. That's big. Big time stuff, resume builder, and just feel validated for all the hard work that you put in, and you got recognized for it. And oftentimes, we do what we do, but you feel like, man, ain't nobody noticing the work I'm doing. Um, maybe but the kids, but that they show it in different ways. Where I guess when the adults notice those, that's when the awards and stuff, come in. So again, that was big time stuff. So proud of you, and hey, keep it going, keep it moving. All right, Lasagna, do you have anything that you want to add to it? Welcome. Thanks for joining the panel.
You're
Um,
welcome.
Indeed.
appreciate it. Anything that you want to offer from what we spoke on so far?
Well, from our conversation, I have experienced several of those things that you mentioned, mainly in family. I won't say who it is because I do have other family members there. However, those things were traumatic to me, and it took until 14 years ago before I started working on dealing with that trauma. Before I started working that trauma out, I self medicated with alcohol. I was aggressive. I, I I I was out of control. You couldn't say nothing to me. It was my way or no way. Now it's a different thing. Like I discussed with you, it's a lot of shadow work. A lot of days sitting at home with nothing on and dealing with those demons. You know, because not every ear you vent to is a safe ear.
Mhm.
Mhm. Yeah, and that is a lot. And like you said, not every year is a savior. Some people get that information and they run with it, and that's their whole thing,
Yeah.
to try to exploit your weaknesses and kind of say to themselves, "Yeah, I got them now. I got
Yeah.
them now," and they try to run with it. So that's why you have to, be careful and kind of choose your words wisely. I don't know if this person is real. I don't know if this is they trolling, or whatever the case is with this comment, but I'm gonna read it anyway. Please, I am begging you, in the name of God, someone please help me feed my kids. They haven't eaten anything from yesterday. Please, and still in need of diapers. Feel mercy on us. I am losing hope. My cash app is such and such. So I don't know. So many scams and stuff going on. So
Yeah.
I can't. I'm not trying to be dismissive, but that's something I just have to process
Like Ronald
and
Reagan said, trust but
think about. But
verify.
if anybody, yeah,
So
say that again.
as I spoke with David about, I'm not ashamed of my story because, like I said, I've dealt with that trauma. I've forgiven those that that have done what they've done. You know, and that forgiveness was not for them. That was for me because I blamed everybody. I didn't know because of what took place with me as a child how to speak out on it. So it affected me up until I was, like I said, it's been 14 years. So until I was 41.
It's a
And then
process.
recent and then now if I tell people my story, they think maybe it's my weakness. No, that's my strength now. At one point it used to be my weakness, you know. So when someone tries to throw it up as, that's your weakness, no, that's my strength.
Mhm.
Because when you have to fight back from that, you find out how strong you really are.
This is true. This is true. And that's why you gotta you gotta keep fighting it, and more comfortable you get with talking about it, it's therapeutic and it's healing. But again, it has to be, with the right individuals, and sometimes that's hard to decipher. You just never know. But when you're comfortable, I guess, in your own skin, and with things, with the direction you're going and what you've been through, then sometimes you just you just keep rolling on. But then again, sometimes they say that's an emotional numbness that we're good for that, like just numbing and kind of blocking things out, and kind of sweeping stuff to the side to just move forward, which may not always be the case. I could say I'm probably guilty of emotional numbness. If I block something out, I'll block it out and then try to
Mhm.
prioritize and put other stuff there and and just keep it moving. And the only time I'll think about it is if something slows down for me. So I always try to have a bunch of stuff going on. Um, all right, Doc, what's good?
Hey, what's going on, everyone? Hey, we got to get her a hat. So she has a bucket hat too, just like us.
Well, thank you.
I'm just playing. David, so hey man, when you go back to the Cataract City, you drive every time?
Yeah, lately I have been. Not
Wow.
all the time, but most of the time.
Okay. If it's a long weekend, I fly it. But if I'm gonna be there like a week or more, I'll drive it. But
How long is the flight from? Would you fly out of Dallas or?
American has direct flights out of Reagan, but a lot of times when I fly out, I go up to BWI because
Okay,
Southwest has a lot of direct flights to Buffalo. So it takes about 45 minutes.
Yeah.
Wheels up, wheels down, 45 minutes.
Yeah.
But the thing is, if I fly it, I got to rent a car when I'm there. So it's like, do you do the long drive or do
that's
you?
what I was going to ask you, because I know that at least you can take the 24 from the airport downtown to Buffalo, but it also depends on what you're doing when you get here.
Yeah. Mom's not. I'm not trying to borrow her car for the entire trip. And why don't you rent a car? And why don't you do this? Why don't you do that? So the way I was raised, when you go see relatives, don't be an inconvenience to them. Try to get in there and don't make yourself the story.
Yeah.
Buy your own food. Get your own transportation.
Hotel if necessary.
Don't disrupt the flow of the house. Don't disrupt what they do at the house. Just be seen but not heard.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I agree with that, and that's part of the reason why a lot of times I drive, because I have to control my own situation. I can't sit around and wait for, and I might not even go nowhere. I could be very well at my sister's house or my aunt's house, just being there chilling, but I still need to have, for my sanity, a car out there that I could just go in, jump in, and go whenever I want to go, and don't have to worry about nobody calling where you at, or well, I need you to take me here or whatever. Nah, the hell with all that.
Okay.
It happened.
Well, fellas, I just want to get in here. I can't hang with y'all all night, man. Y'all be hanging. I can't, y'all some bad dudes, man. Y'all be up till like 11 and 10:30, 11 o'clock, and sometimes beyond. I can't hang with y'all. But
that matter.
No, the topic. I just want to come up and say, you'd be surprised. Well, maybe not surprised, David. You're a counselor, but how many people are actually seeing counselors and seeing therapists? There are a lot of people who are talking to somebody. I'm talking to somebody right now, and I don't think anybody has a perfect childhood. I think some people have ideal childhoods where they have both parents and nobody was fighting and nobody got divorced, but it seems like everybody is dealing with something. And if it's not one of those things that you described, David, it could be some sort of something involving the parents. There are a lot of parents who feel the need to compete with their children. Sometimes the mother feels the need to compete with the daughter. And sometimes the father feels a need to compete with the son. Not every set of parents wants to see the children do better than them. It's strange. And sometimes your folks start off as your biggest cheerleaders, and then at some point things can flip. And then you realize as you get older that your parents are people too, right? And they have a history and they have a past, and they have flaws. And you might also realize that everything they told you wasn't necessarily right, or maybe it was right for their time, but things change and evolve. So there are a lot of different kinds of trauma. Yeah,
that's true. And like you said, that has. Go ahead.
And then the other thing I was thinking about this too, leading up to this, is I think your show title is in the dating context. It's really interesting because not everybody is raised the same way. So some houses kids are taught manners. Mm-hmm. Other households kids are not taught manners. Some kids are told by their parents, "I love you and I'm proud of you." Those are two powerful words. Not every kid is told that. So some kids go out into the world not knowing how to give love because they never got it. Yeah. And in some instances, you have to decide, what things from my home am I going to take with me? And you might come from a toxic home, and some people take that with them and they own that. This is the type of background that I come from, don't try to change me, And so if you're dealing with somebody like that, of course you have to make a decision about what to do. Because one of my favorite books, and I'm gonna land the plane soon, is I reread The Four Agreements by Don Miguel Ruiz recently. It's a short book. It's a very good read. I'm doing a lot of self-help these days, but one of the things he says in the book is, if you love somebody, he said, you don't want to get together with somebody that you have to change. That's not love. If you have to change them, you don't love them. And if they feel like they have to change you, then they don't really love you. It's very deep. It's very profound. And only a person can change themselves if they see fit to do that, but you can't change them. So I'm gonna zip it right there.
And to follow that up, I think people need to understand a few things. And correct me if I'm wrong, because I haven't read the book. I'll probably end up picking it up. There's a difference between changing somebody and getting somebody in alignment with what you want. I don't necessarily consider that changing. Case in point, I've often said on this platform, and I'll maintain it, that when football season comes around, I don't want to be bothered. If it's not catastrophic, if somebody ain't dying or whatever the case is, leave me alone. I'm not making any plans on the Sundays because that's what I do. I don't go out and drink. I'm not a partier. I'm not a drug user. My boys are out of town. I've already said they already going to do their own thing. I don't want anybody to change what they do on Sunday. So if you go to church, go to church. I'm just saying, don't involve me in your plans, whether we're married in a committed relationship or whatever the case is, because that's just what I do. I don't expect anybody to like it. I just want the respect that an autonomous male should have, because if you ask anybody who's known me for years and you ask them, what's the worst thing about me? That's probably what they'll say. He's inflexible when it comes to certain things. I'll take that. I'll take that. I'll live with it. I'll run with it, because that's probably the worst thing that I'm going to do as an adult, is I'm going to shut you down when you ask about what am I doing on Sunday, September. What day is that? Sunday? I'm watching football. Yeah, but you always go to sleep. I'm watching football. Even if I go to sleep during the second game, I'm watching football. Those are my dedicated days, because I'm not doing anything. I'm not out running the streets. I'm not out abusing women, creating multiple children, all of this. My day. That's my self-help, my self-medication. If I want to drink, I'm going to drink on that day. If I want to eat half a large piece and 15 wings, that's what I'm going to do. I'm not looking for change. I'm just looking for acceptance of who I am. That's it. And sometimes that's the most difficult thing we have to deal with when we get with somebody, is like Dr. Dunbar said, people are trying to change. Just accept what you have in front of you. If it's something you can live with, live with. If not, go on. That's all.
You know what? You know what, Herb? And then the other thing is, these are all things I'm learning
Mhm.
post moving out.
Mhm.
Because, well, I won't go there right now. But Ram Wills made a video on his Deep Thought channel about loving yourself. That's been a journey for me. And something he said that's been in my mind since he said it is that your relationship with yourself is your first relationship.
Mhm.
Okay. And if you really love yourself, you won't subject yourself to certain things. You won't, you'll leave as soon as you see something kind of shaky.
Yeah.
But there's a balance there, because I mean everybody's, I mean, there's no perfect relationship, but I think that's valuable advice there. Your first relationship is actually with yourself. It sounds kind of selfish, but if you're not taking care of yourself, then you're not really any good for the other person. And I have a history of violating that rule. I'll just leave that there. But there's a line somewhere between loving yourself and taking care of yourself and then being there for the other person.
You know, I'll follow that up with this. We were just talking about airplanes and flying. When the stewardess, before you taxi, when you leave the gate, what is the first thing the stewardess tell you about the oxygen mask? Put your own on first. A lot of people don't understand why that's imperative. No matter who's around you, what's going on, they tell you, put your own oxygen mask on first. And that's what self-help is. And I've often said, I have no problem with anybody that goes to therapy. For me, this platform is therapy. Anytime something has happened, catastrophic, I'm here because, one, Dave is dependent on me to be here. Two, I'm accountable to what Dave wants, because this might be David's thing, but I've adopted it as my own. So if I'm not here, in my opinion of my own self, I failed. And I don't like failure. So Dave's gonna put his oxygen mask on. I'm gonna put mine on. He's gonna be the pilot. I'm gonna be the co-pilot. We gonna fly this puppy. And that's what people need to understand. A lot of people, because they want you to take care of them first, they say, don't put your oxygen mask on before I put mine on. That doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me, because I can't be of service to you if I'm not of service to myself. That's why I was telling you, you call me selfish or whatever the case is, I know what I want. I know what makes me tick. And if I'm not ticking, I can't help you keep time either. And that's what people need to understand. So if somebody accuses you of being selfish, acknowledge what you're being selfish about. And then say, yes, you know what? I am. This is my day. This is what I do on this day. If I go out and drink, I'll go out and drink. Or if you go out and drink, you go out and drink. So long as you're not abusing yourself or anybody else around you and you're functional, do what you do to keep yourself upright and moving forward. Oh, we have too many people that want to yield to somebody else. They say they love them. Well, I can't do it without this person. But damn, what were you doing before you met this person? Well, I was doing this, this, and this. So why stop? You like to paint? You like to draw? You like to walk? You like to go for jogs? You like to listen to music? Why stop all that just because you get into a relationship? Because now you cut yourself off. You distance yourself from the person you were when you met that individual, failing to realize that it was one of those qualities that helped you become the person that person's attracted to. So keep doing what you're doing. Don't stop.
The thing for me is when you don't have self-love, something that I had to learn later on in life is I was a people pleaser.
Mm-hmm.
I was always making sure somebody else was all right, but inside I wasn't all right.
Mm-hmm.
So now I make sure that I'm okay, because I can't help you or love you if I'm not okay.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody, like I said, we have to meet people at the level they are. when you're in that stage with trauma, you try to fix people. That was my thing. He's gonna change. He's gonna change. What can I do to make it different? But now you get two chances. You get two.
Mhm.
And that's not about you. That's about me and my mental health. Because the relationship shouldn't be back and forth. It shouldn't be toxic. If we can't be each other's biggest supporters, then we shouldn't be with each other.
So,
See,
so when
everybody
you
thinks marriage is built off of love, but what is love? What is love? What does it encompass?
so let, so let me
Ooh.
ask you this. So when you say two chances, does that is it certain things or certain things that fall under them? Because sometimes it's a bunch of little small things, or do they all equate to the two
M-
chances and that's it? Because some
My
things are like,
biggest
yo, that's
thing,
major.
my biggest thing is honesty. Honesty. Like I told you before, David, I work 6 months out of the year. I need to be able to know I can trust you. That don't mean just with your zipper. That means that if I ask you something and you lie to me about the simplest thing, if we
Yeah,
were in a relationship and it was something business level or whatever, if you find the smallest things to keep lying about, I can't trust you. With no trust, there's no relationship.
absolutely.
So that's the thing. Like I told you, it's not always about people cheating or whatever. It's about, can I trust you? If we have an agreement, we have an agreement. But if you feel like you have to lie, that means you don't trust me with the truth.
Mm.
So if you're not trusting me with the truth, and I can't trust you to be truthful, what are we doing here? And that's what
Trust me.
most people fail to understand. We stay in places longer than we're supposed to. If we treat relationships like what it says, a ship, and know when it's time to get off because we can't go no further, we'll take ourselves out of so much misery that we put ourselves in sometimes.
Mhm.
Especially us women, because we'll stay in situations we know that is not right for us. But he's gonna change. Then you're talking to your homegirls, your mama, your friends. Oh, he just do me this way. No, a man or a woman can only do what you allow them to do. You see, you can't change that person, but you can change you
Mhm.
through education, through self-love, through support systems. But we stay too long because we're we're broken, and just that little bit of thing that we think is love, we stay because it's like a drug.
But the sign is sometimes we try to leave and the other person comes back.
And
In
that's
Jesus'
the
name, I know
And
what
they
that
keep
is.
coming
And
back.
I don't mean no offense, her, because I'm not a religious person. I'm spiritual. But I do say that phrase sometimes to not say other things. So, yeah, they do. But we have to have the strength to understand. Broken people, they go from here to here and there.
yeah,
And sometimes they spin the block to see if you still broken too.
yeah,
But that's trauma bonding. We're not
yeah.
trauma bonding no more.
Mhm.
It's either healthy loving, or you can kick rocks or I can kick rocks. Whichever one of us is messed up needs to go our separate way.
Now,
I've always had a rule, and I think I've violated this rule once in a relationship. If we break up, that's it. There's no circling back. There's no coming around. There's no nothing. I've only violated that rule one time.
Well, hell, I bumped my head recently. You know what I'm saying? I still got the knot, but it'll be okay.
It's a hard. It really is a hard lesson to learn because especially if the relationship was intimate, you formed a bond for most people, at least relatively speaking, that you generally don't form with too many other people. So we tend, whether you're male or female, we tend to say, okay, I have that bond with that individual, failing to realize that that bond is only as good as you're actually intimate. Because once you're not intimate, like you said, LaShawn, the trust is what binds you. All that other stuff is like frosting on a cake. If your foundation has multiple cracks in it, whatever you build on that eventually is going to collapse because the foundation is not strong. And I always tell people this is one of the things I get to in the book. If you start off lying, and by omission, a lie can be a lie. It's not necessarily doesn't have to be a lie because an individual may not be comfortable with revealing some aspects of themselves, so they may not initially tell an individual if they're not comfortable. I don't necessarily consider that to be a lie. What I do consider it to be is masking a problem that an individual has. And I'll go back to what I referenced before when I was asked about dating, when David and I was in the spot in Buffalo. Women asked this, well, Solar asked. She said, well, what question would you ask on a date? Now, me being the controversial person that I try to be sometimes, I said, well, I would ask a woman if she had an abortion. And there was an audible silence. And one person said, you can't ask that question. It's a violation of the HIPAA laws. I said, for who? I'm not a member of the medical profession. That law doesn't apply to me. And they were flummoxed. They were still trying to figure out a way to avoid answering the question. And they said, well, that's not fair. I said, we're dating. Where's the rules to dating? If I'm trying to get some information on a prospective female that I may want to A, have sex with, B, be friends with, or be in a long-term relationship with, then I need to know the information that I want to know, that's going to be pertinent for me to make that decision. And one of the women said, well, what can you ask a man that's of the same thing? I said, I'm glad you asked that question. I said, you can always ask a man how many women have had abortions for him. And all of a sudden the light bulbs went on. It was like Christmas trees just started to light up. And I said, I never thought of that. I said, most women don't because they're too busy trying to do the I got you or the get back. I said, when you sit down and you start to look at dating for what it is, not hookup culture, but actually dating, you're going out to gather information on the individual that's sitting across from you. That's it. Make it a memorable experience. Enjoy yourself. But get some information along the way. I often ask, what is the one question or questions that people don't ask on a date? People say, I don't get it. What's the one question that people don't ask? Or the questions? The ones that they wanted to ask, but they were too afraid that they might run the individual off. Guess what? If you ask a question and it's too tough for that individual to answer, that person's probably not the person you want to deal with. Because they haven't, like LaShonda said, they haven't done the shadow work to be comfortable within themselves for everything that's occurred in their life. Literally, there is nothing that I won't feel comfortable enough to sit down and talk to with anyone about. Whether it's foster care, me dropping out of high school, me flunking out of college, me having the young woman having an abortion, all of that because I'm comfortable within myself enough to have that dialogue. I'm not saying everyone is. I understand that everybody's not where I am in terms of having healed themselves. It's just like the professor asked somebody. He said, if I asked you to pick up a glass of water and hold it, what are you going to do when it starts to get heavy? People say, I'll find a way to hold it. He said, why? He said, the easiest thing to do is just put it down. Like Dr. Dunbar said, we have a lot of people who will carry that burden around as if it's something to be cherished. I'm not carrying the luggage around unless I'm going on a trip somewhere. I'll leave that luggage sitting on the ground. Why am I going to hold that luggage? That's too much weight to be carrying around. I'm not Jesus of Nazareth. I'm not trying to carry a cross to be crucified on it. But at the same time, it's like LaShonda said, once you own something, nobody can use it against you. Nobody can weaponize you. Nobody can weaponize you and say, that's why you this. Yeah, and bear with me for using this. It's like somebody calling a black person a nigger. Okay, Ann, that's your best shot? That's it? Laugh at him and see what response you get. They can be like, I just insulted you. No. You didn't insult me because I'm not what you perceive me to be.
Exactly.
And this is the thing that people, when they get to a certain point in their healing process, and this is something I address in the book, because not everybody's on the same path. Some people may just be starting, some people may be in the middle, some people might be through quarter, somebody might be wholly there. We don't know what's going to trigger an individual and cause them to either relapse or just abandon what it is that they've done altogether. So you know what? This ain't working. It's like rehab from an injury. I don't want to do this. It's too hard.
I want to chime in.
Yeah, go ahead, Dave. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I was making valid points. A good conversation. What Ebony Nelson said, and thanks for Ebony for looking up into that. I guess the person that was looking for diapers or whatever with the Cash App, the little fraud. About she said off topic, but it's not off topic because that's trauma for your son. That my 9-year-old son is being bullied by a 14-year-old boy. First of all, why is a 14-year-old even have an interaction with the 9-year-old? So that leads me as a counselor in the school to kind of question this 14-year-old. Like if I was in that school thing, I would probably pull his coat like, dude, what are you doing, man? To me, like I work at the middle school level. So when I see 8th graders messing with 6th graders, like for real, dude, like this what you doing? Messing with 6th graders? And sometimes you gotta hit them on the head and shame them, and for them to understand. Like, yo, that's very low. But let me finish the thing. She said, so I went to the parents' house. They don't answer. I went to the police station. They won't do anything. The father is very disrespectful. He smacks little kids. My son's father is in jail for 25 years. My child does not bother anybody. He's an honorable student, very respectable, and all he wants to do is go outside and play. And I'm having a hard time with this bullying because now it's affecting my child. Do you know any platform? And I don't like stuff like that at all. That when you take away somebody's ability to live and live in comfort because of your insecurities. So I have a hard time figuring out why is, to me, a 9th grader, 10th grader messing with somebody in the 4th grade.
Yeah.
3rd or 4th grade. That's lower than low. Like, and most kids, if they know that's going on, they kind of like, yo, dude, like, what are you doing? Like,
yeah.
And we may think like we have a mean culture, but it's only a small percentage of kids like that. A lot of kids try to do the right thing, and they may say, yo, why are you messing with this person? Why are you bothering them? So, again, I don't know as far as where are they running into? Is it a neighborhood thing? Is there?
Yes, she said. This is what she. Let me read the second part, Dave. She said it's outside in the city of Lackawanna. Every time he goes outside, they're not in schools because they go to different schools. She said every time he goes outside to play, that's when the incursion occurs. So the bullying. You go ahead, Dave. You can finish up. I'll hop in afterwards.
And again, sometimes talking to a parent, you may not get no results. And I know in most cases people may say, well, okay, I'm just going to get one of my family members to handle it. And it's kind of hard. It's kind of difficult. Like some of the things is difficult in the community that you can't have control over, especially if you're a working parent and you got to try to, live your life. But then you know your child wants to be outside playing, but then he keeps running into this shit loser ass kid that's 14 that's messing with a little kid. I guess you got to get to the bottom of that. And then again, the police is really nothing they really can do. If they're in the same school, like Daphne said, you can fill out a bullying harassment. Then police they'll get some involvement in it, but it's probably sort of gonna have to fall on like the parents too. But it seemed like the father's a jerk, and then the mother, she's not responding. So that 14-year-old, it's something deeper going on with him. Probably because most kids realize that, all right, this ain't this isn't right. And I have a hard time just thinking about a 14-year-old messing with a little 9-year-old. So I don't even know if I had an answer as far as the community thing. Like, what can you actually do when you got kind of absentee parents with the 14-year-old, but your kid wants to play outside? Probably the only other thing is put him in environments that he supervised and you're there so that he could still get that time. But
Mhm.
somebody's probably gonna have to deal with the 14-year-old eventually. And and to be honest, that might be the answer. Somebody's gonna have to deal with them. Because other than that, he won't stop.
Yeah.
He won't stop until somebody deals with him.
Hey guys, it's about that time for me. I gotta tap out. It's like
Always
UFC,
appreciate
tap
it,
out.
Doc. Always appreciate it, man.
Nah, but to everybody watching, I just want to say, yeah, I mean, very few of us came from perfect homes, and stuff has a tendency to go on for years if you don't fix it or if you don't address it. Patterns tend to repeat, and Herb mentioned the bad word at the beginning. Kevin Samuels, he mentioned the bad word, but that was one thing he always said on the show was therapy. That gets overlooked. I mean, that wasn't the most sensational thing that he said on his broadcast, but there are a lot of people in therapy today. There are a lot of people seeking counseling, and there are a lot of people on medication now.
Yes.
A lot of people on medication.
Yeah. Mhm.
For any number of reasons.
Mhm.
So if you need help, yeah, it's tough, but don't be afraid to ask for help and seek help. So I'll talk to you guys later.
All right, man. Take care.
All right,
All right.
Ebony, I sent you a friend's request. I know this may come across as unpopular to some people, but younger boys, especially at that age, they're prepubescent. They haven't moved to that next phase of youth development, and that is the ability to fight. And I know how this is going to come across, but I want people to listen carefully. That bully is only picking on your son because A, he knows he can't fight, or B, he knows he won't fight. Bullies never pick on somebody who will put them hands up. Why? Because they the same thing that everybody else fears, they fear a good ass whipping. That's what David was talking about when he said you might have to find somebody to address that. So what I would tell you is go put your child in some boxing classes or some self-defense classes. And I'm not saying you got to pay a boatload of money. What is going to help him do is address that confidence. But see, this is where he's off the beaten path, Ebony. He doesn't have to beat the 14-year-old. All he has to be willing to do is tell the 14-year-old, look, I'm not what you think I am. So every time you see me, we gonna scrap. I guarantee you that 14-year-old is gonna do one or two things. He's gonna leave him alone or they're gonna fight every day. And what you tell your son is this. You find a stick big enough to hurt that 14-year-old, and guess what that 14-year-old is gonna do? He's gonna leave him the hell alone. That's what my mother used to tell me. Pick up something to knock the hell out of him.
And it goes back to me that's troubling to me is a 14-year-old messing with a 9-year-old. So I think it's something going on with this 14-year-old deeper than any of us know, to not realize this ain't right. It's a little elementary kid. What props do you get from doing that? I just don't like stuff like that, and I know that it's not that age disparity at my school, but I done worked at all levels, and I can tell you when a kid come down and I really sense that they bullying, I go right to that kid and I press them and like, oh, that's what you doing now? I'm not the conventional counselor. And usually they're like, oh, well, this will happen, whatever. Like, yo, leave them alone. I better not hear nothing else, or it's gonna be issues. And then sometimes you have to tell them because you don't know who you dealing with or who gonna come up here for you. It just may not end like that. But my heart goes out to you, Ebony, and I know that's a grave concern because everybody wants their child to just be able to enjoy life, just be a kid, never live in fear. Kids should be able to go to school and feel safe, should be able to play outside and feel safe. And it's not always the case nowadays because I could guarantee you back in our days, if it was this 14-year-old and it was
he'd have been dealt
us
with.
9-year-olds, it would have been
dealt with.
5 or 6 of us 9-year-olds beating his ass. So things are not the same, but yeah, just and Herb's right. I mean, he definitely got to get into some programs. You said he could fight, but yeah, he can't. He's more than like he's not going to beat a 14-year-old because that's really like a 9th or 10th grader. But that person is sick. It's sick. They're sick. 14 messing with it. There's something is wrong with them. So it's not even. I know it's about your son, the way you feel and all that stuff, but I think probably the root of the problem is always the root cause. That 14-year-old, something's wrong with them, developmentally wise, that they can't understand. Like, yo, this is all wrong. In high school, messing with a 3rd or 4th grader.
Yeah, I will say this much: you don't want to, you're absolutely correct. Is getting out of control. If the possibility exists, take your son somewhere else to play, even if it's a different neighborhood where that other boy isn't. Because once you start getting into weapons, especially knives, you're dealing in a different realm. Also, make sure you chronicle on paper all the times that this older youth messes with your son, so you create a paper trail. So if something does happen, you can chronicle to where you spoke to law enforcement officials and nothing was done. Because what it does is it gives you the reason for a defense should something legal come down the pipe. Also, go speak to an attorney. I can't preface this enough. Sometimes we don't use the legal system to our advantage. So go speak to an attorney. Get online, find attorneys that handle juvenile cases, especially ones that potentially can involve weapons, because you're saying your son is carrying one. We don't know when he might avail himself of that. So go speak to an attorney, a juvenile attorney who handles potential juvenile charges that can have that juvenile charged as an adult. Because what they're going to say is he willingly is carrying this knife at the potential of harming somebody. So you're starting to get into a legal area. So make sure you do that. So you and your son need to sit down, or you take your son with you to this attorney, and I'm sure most attorneys will give you I can't remember the legal term for it, but they'll give you a consultation. They'll give you a consultation and say, hey, look, this is what you need to do legally to keep your son out of trouble. And once you do this, and it's been documented that this child is bothering your son, and your son happens to do something, they're going to say, hey, he had a legal right to defend himself against an unprovoked attack against a bully, because this country now has anti-bullying laws, just something that David mentioned earlier. And it doesn't necessarily apply to school. It applies to the country at large. So there's cyberbullying, there's bullying in person, in school. Avail yourself to an attorney to find out what legal recourses you can take, your son can take, so you avoid any legal issues.
Now here's another option too, and I don't know, like down here in Baltimore, they have like a feeder school pattern that most of the like certain elementaries kids, then they go to the middle school, and then certain schools go to a certain high school. If you know which school that kid goes to, maybe you can reach out to the school. And I don't know if they have school resource officers in the school, but you can let them know, like, hey, my kid is, or let your kid's counselor know that my kid is going through something in the community with now granted most schools say, well, it's nothing we could do in the community, but they could kind of somebody could pull that 14-year-old
Yeah, they can.
down and kind of shame them and like, dude, what are you doing, man? Like I wish it was me whenever talking to a 14-year-old messing with a 9-year-old. But you can let your child's counselor know, and then maybe they may have a relationship with or know the high school counselor, like, hey, one of my kids' mother came in their in the community. Uh, One of your students has been bothering them, and they're like, all right, I'm gonna pull them in, and then you pull that, they'll pull that 14-year-old, like, yo, and it depends. Again, like I said, I'm not the conventional one, like how they may do it. It depends, but hopefully you have someone that pull them in and say, yo, what's going on in your community? Like, heard you've been messing with been bothering a little 9-year-old. For real? Seriously? How old are you? 14. So you messing with a 9-year-old? Why? And you start questioning them and grilling them. But also this too, there's a lack of male counselors in the school systems. So most of the time it may be women. Not saying they may not come with that approach, but I think sometimes it's different coming from a man, uh, questioning them. So, but I think that's an angle to explore. Is start, talk to your kid's counselor, and then if you know where that kid, if he's well, he should be in school at 14, but shit, we know how that rolls. Um, and maybe they can find out or go on the system and see what school that kid goes to, and then start kind of collecting data and kind of getting a little tracking stuff based on that, getting a little data track on this individual, because we may find out it's something else going on too. It could be he could have charges, he could have something else going on. Could be someone that been hospitalized or been involved in youth detention or something. So I think it's important to try to reach out to the personnels in the school, and maybe they could get a hold of the parent. So that's just my
I'm
suggestion.
actually right now looking up what New York State laws are for restraining orders for minors. So pardon me if I go silent for a moment. That's what I'm doing right now.
So I read your comment. You said until something happens. So
Yeah, that's what.
obviously,
Well,
and they may talk about physically, but if he said, if he's saying things or verbally abusing them, that is something. So make sure if you're not always there, make sure help your son write out a statement and
yep.
turn that in. And the more he keep turning in, like, yep, the same kid said something to me again, and you already went to the police, and then if nobody's doing something, then it's gonna be on their heads because you did with everything, all you could do. So I would definitely get some written documentation down, and that's usually how that paper trail starts going. So I
Yeah.
would start with writing some down, and then
Mhm.
maybe going to your child's counselor and say, "Is this high school kid doing that keep bothering, and then maybe they have some connections with that high school, and they can say, "Hey, tell me about such and such," and they're like, "Oh, he was in it, he was this. This is what's going on in his household." And you'll get information. You get all you wouldn't get all the details about it, but
Right.
the pieces will start coming together once more people start talking.
This is what you can do, Ebony. First things first. Like I said, anytime you speak to law enforcement regarding this, make sure they give you a signed statement of what was told to you. Number two, go file a restraining order against the kid. I know it sounds counterproductive, but this is what it does. It gives you the legal recourse, as well as your son, to defend yourself in the event of a hostile act. A hostile act does not always mean physical. It could be verbal, because we all know that from a verbal to a physical altercation can happen just like that, especially with boys. So three, if he is carrying a knife and he decides to use it, they'll say there was a restraining order in place, that kid violated that restraining order. They may try and charge your son, but my opinion, this is why I said consult an attorney. A reasonable attorney will say, hey, look, in a case where there's potentially violence involved, an individual can defend themselves up to and using lethal force. That is a right that is guaranteed everybody by the Constitution. You are allowed to use enough force to stop a person from assaulting you, up to and including having to take that person's life if you deem it necessary. Nobody's going to fault your child for defending themselves against somebody, like David said, is arguably much older than they are and should have no contact with this individual. So like I said, make sure you go consult an attorney. And if you need help finding one, I'll help you. I've already sent you a friend's request.
All right. So as you see, trauma comes in different avenues. Again, and I understand that role of trauma, and I think I spoke on this before, that when I was younger, and I remember going to summer camp, and how it all was set up. I had signed up for football my first year. I think I was 9, but they accidentally put me on the wrong team. They put me on the team with the 11 and 12-year-olds. Now I'm 9, never played before. So now I'm 9 with the 11, and people may not say, "Oh, it's not much of a difference," but it is developmentally as far as sports. So when I was on the team with the 11 and 12-year-olds, they're going through the tires, the little tire drills. I'm 9. Of course, I'm not coordinated to do all that, but I went to day camp, and I was getting, kind of bullied, or stuff was thrown at me. They, laughing and snickering. Oh, that's the boy that play on our team. And they're like, ha, ha, ha. They're 11 and 12 years old, and I'm feeling bad. Like, man, I don't want to go to, telling my mother, I don't want to go to camp no more, and wasn't really sure about football. But then they realized, oh shit, we put them on the wrong team. But during that time, this one guy who was on the 11 and 12-year team, he actually stood up and spoke in my behalf, and like, yo, why y'all messing with him? Like, y'all see that he's younger than us. Why are y'all? So, and he was kind of like a little man child compared to, like, he was already like Diesel, whatever, but he kind of nipped it in the, and I always said that if I ever have a conversation with him, as we got adults, I would give him, a shout out or say something like, thanks for that time, because he kind of stood his ground on that and told them, like, yo, leave him alone, man. He younger than us. Whatever. What do y'all expect? So he was far further along than they were, and he had my back. Eventually, I got moved to the level team that I was supposed to be on, but it's just little stuff like that you go through, it's trauma, and it plays on you. And I always remember that, as well. But it didn't stop me from doing whatever I needed to do. But I always thought about that, like man, they was, and it was only for a couple days. But I know some kids go through that longer. Like it's just like never ending, until somebody, an adult or somebody, finds out to kind of end that trauma. Some things never end, and that's when we talk about uh, the sexual abuse and stuff like that. Some kids go through trauma, like the same person is doing this year after year after year for years, and no one ever knows, so they pretend like they don't know what's going on, and you have years of all that in your head. So imagine the damage done when you think about going through something for years. So it's real. Greg said doors have
Yeah,
locks
this,
for me.
um, I mean, not to belabor this point, but we don't know where all trauma has its genesis from. It could be something. I'll tell the story. I remember being about 8 years old, younger brother would wear these rubber Halloween masks, and I hated them. They scared me to death, to the point where I would cower in the corner and cry. So anytime I did something that he didn't like, he would go get the mask and would scare the living hell out of me. I sit in the
9:16.
corner and they're like, yo, it's just a mask. I don't like the mask. So take the mask off. And he knew it. Everybody in the family knew it. And it got to a point one day where I was just like, you know what? It's mask. I am not gonna be fearing this goddamn mask anymore. You got the mask. He's like, you ain't running. I said, no, man. You might as well take that mask off. It ain't gonna work anymore. But every time I see a rubber mask, I always revert back to that thought that I couldn't believe that I used to run from these things. So we don't know what's going to cause trauma, how it's going to manifest itself in our lives as we move forward. There are some people who, matter of fact, I dated somebody who didn't like clowns, terrified of clowns. And I remember I had Vegas about 15, 16 years ago. I was outside of Circus. I took a picture with a clown. I had the picture up as my profile picture. She said, you got to take that picture down. I said, why? She said, I'm afraid of clowns. I was, clowns? She said, they scare me to death. I didn't ask any questions. I replaced the profile picture. So we don't know what triggers somebody, why. The only thing we need to understand is that it does. And if you care enough about that individual and the way they feel, you go and say, okay, you know what? I won't do that when you're around, or I'll try to address what it is that I might do that might trigger that. Because like I said earlier, we are all on our own journey of healing, self-discovery, and it might be something that's laden, that's been buried for years, and all of a sudden somebody might do something and a person just reacts. And you're saying, yo, what the hell is wrong with you? All he did was say this, so all he did was do that. He said, yeah, but I don't like it. This might be news to you. So if it's news to you, your best recourse is to sit down and say, hey, look, I've never known that. Is there anything else that I need to know about that potentially might cause you to react in such a way? And this is one of the things I address in the book. Is some people are not going to tell you something because they don't want to be perceived as weak. They don't want to be perceived as vulnerable. Everybody has some vulnerability. Even I do. For as much as I like to proclaim that I'm confident, there are certain situations you can put me in that I'm not comfortable. And I'm going to react that way, whether it's in how I speak or in my actions. I'm quick to remove myself from a situation where I don't feel comfortable. If I feel like I'm being violated in some way or something is not amenable to what I want, whether I'm wrong or right about it, I'm still going to remove myself because I want to get back to the level of stasis. So if I got to get out in the middle of nowhere and wander around for a bit until I get something figured out, I'm going to do that because that's where I feel comfortable. I feel I can be in a room full of strangers in the middle of nowhere and feel comfortable. Conversely, I could be in a room full of people that I know, and when I say no, I'm talking loosely, and not feel comfortable because the vibe is off. I'm just like, okay, wait a minute. There's a bunch of people in here that don't really sit right with me. The energy's off, the vibe is off. You know, it's almost like something might jump off in this piece, and you know, I'm ready to go. I've done that. I remember being in DC with my boy, and we was at a party for a friend, and I was like, you know what, man, I'm not feeling this place. I remember we go up to the second floor, and there was only one way out of this place. We were on the second floor, and the floor would oscillate. There were so many people on that dance floor dancing. I was just like, oh no, this ain't safe. I get up out of here, man. And they would say, yo, what's wrong with you? I said, man, I just don't feel comfortable in here. So your level of comfort in any situation be dictated by how you feel. And never apologize for how you feel. People need to understand, you know, your intuition, and some people think women have more or better intuition than men. Men have the same intuition. This is why some men say, you know what? I gotta get up out of here, man. Let's go, dude. I seen this cat walk up in here. He looking real suspicious. I said, nah, man. I'm out. Because I remember going into certain bars, and this is years ago, where the first aroma that hit me was weed. I was like, oh no. I'm out. Why? These cats smoking weed. It's just weed. I don't care. I'm out. Y'all can sit here and party. I'll go wait in the car. I'm like, yo, what's wrong with your man? That's his thing. He don't smoke. You don't hang out with people that smoke like unless they're known to him. So yeah, I gotta go.
Yeah.
Can I ask you something, Herb? Since you dealt
Go
with
ahead.
your trauma and everything, when you meet people, do you like to lead with who you are? Because I know that that's who I am. If I meet somebody and we decide to deal with one another, I tell you who I am, where I've been, what I've been through, so you'll understand why is certain things I don't appreciate. But some
Mhm.
people, like I said before, they take that as my biggest thing is if you want to trigger me, tell me that my response to some dumb shit is my insecurity or that I lack self confidence. Then you're gonna find out.
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Then you're gonna
Go
find
ahead,
out that
Asante. You
that's
said
not what it is. If I
there's.
meet you and we decide to date, my thing is this: I
Okay.
tell people this. I tell them who I am. I tell them about my
Mhm,
journey because it is my testimony.
mhm,
You know what I'm saying?
mhm.
It is not, it's not my shame. It's not my burden to bear anymore.
The one thing I've discovered about people is they understand you or anyone else from their level of understanding. So if a person doesn't have the level of understanding necessary to understand what you're telling them and why, they are not going to be able to comprehend anything you're telling them. I could sit up here and tell people half of the stuff that I talked about today. To them, it's just like it's. I'll put it to you like this: you ever watch Charlie Brown and hear one of the teachers speak? That's what it sounds like. And they'll sit there and say, "Why are you telling me this? You're telling them this because you want them to know who you are." But some people don't care who you are, and that is the most difficult thing for everyone to figure out about a person that they're sitting across from. Is do they actually care about who I am? Or do they concern themselves more with what they can get from me? And you have some people who play the role long enough that they can get something from you and then they're gone. And this is why you always hear a lot of women talking about men who they only use them. Well, what did you lead with? What do you mean, what did I lead with? When you met this man, where did you meet him at? I met him in a nightclub. I met him on a dating app. You met him on a dating app. And you surprised that he targeted you for sex only? Oh. You met him in a church. And do you surprised when he asked you if you read certain Bible passages? This is why I always tell people, if you go out and meet somebody, where you meet them at is going to tell you a lot about who they are. So if you meet them at a fundraiser, you know they're engaged in that. If you meet them in the nightclub, you know they're in the party life. If you meet them at church, there's a very good chance they're religious. So that's gonna, for me, that's gonna dictate how I introduce myself. Case in point, I was a volunteer with the Niagara Falls Community Lions, and shout out to the Lions worldwide, largest volunteer organization in the world. I would lead with my position in the Lions Club, how long I've been a member of the Lions Club, and the things that I've done that lead me up to join the Lions Club. And from then, depending on what I may want from this individual, is going to dictate what else I tell them. Now, if I'm only there for small talk, then there's really no need for me to introduce, the man that's been in foster care, the man that's been a high school dropout, the man that didn't finish college, the man that's employed, the man that doesn't have any kids, the man that lost a sister, a pet that he treasured, or his mother. All of those things really don't even come into play because we're not going to be around each other that long. Now, if the conversation happens to move in a certain direction where I believe that information becomes beneficial to that person, then I'm going to say, you know what? Yeah. Or you got some people that say, you know what? I don't feel like conversing right now. I lost a relative. I said, you know what? I completely understand. A few years ago, I this, and this, and people say, and people might open up. They say, well, how did you deal with the loss? Then they are opening the door for you to walk through. Now, this is the tricky part. We have to be mindful of how we walk through that door, because the same way they allowed you in, the same way they can make you walk out. You can say, well, you know what? I understand from my perspective what it did for me. I don't know how it impacted you. So let me ask you this question. When you got the news, what did you say? What did you do, or where were you? Allow them to tell you so you can match them. Too often we want to exceed people in the trauma that we've overcome. It's like we want to testify to them. The last thing somebody wants to hear you do is testify when they're not feeling good. They don't want to hear you boast, because then you making them feel like, or potentially you can make them feel like, well, my story's not listener. Being a good listener is invaluable. I find myself more often than not doing less talking, particularly when I come across people that don't speak English. I find myself listening more attentively than I do talking. And that's when you learn the most, is when you listen to people tell you stuff. I don't need this person to know anything about me if they're telling me a story. They need to be able to tell me the story. I need to be able to understand the story from their point. Because if I don't understand the story from their point, then they're just wasting a breath. Why tell me that you LaShonda, you've dealt with trauma in your past if I'm not interested in learning about you? Oh, I'll go, okay, that's nice. But you know what? I did this. You can look at me like, you self-centered. Get out of here. I don't want to talk to you. And that's what we have to do. We have to understand how to be active listeners. Sometimes the story may not be about you. Sometimes the story may not even include you, other than as an audience. And then
when I say that, I meet people and I tell them, that's like I said, if we're dating. Now, if it's just like we met the first time, we didn't vibe or whatever, but if we're going to even be friends and be in each other's midst, you have to understand why I am the way I am, so that we don't, it's open communication is what I'm saying. Because before, like I said, I accepted things. So now when I have boundaries on certain things and I shut things down, you have to understand that that's the way it is. Like the reason I don't deal with a man that deals with two women is it almost cost me my life one time because of a lie.
Mhm.
You being dishonest about what you were doing. Her feelings was more into it, and it nearly cost me my life. So that's why I say when I talk to someone and I say, hey, these are
Mhm.
the non-negotiables with me, and this is why. You know, and I
The right
think,
one will.
and then when I'm also when I'm interacting with someone, I ask questions. You know what I'm saying? Like as far as me dating a man, I feel like if a man doesn't have a relationship with his mother, a positive relationship with his mother, and he hasn't dealt with trauma, he's going to be a problem.
Mhm.
His every relationship, whether it's a relationship with a lover or friend or any female, is going to be an issue until you deal with that. It can even be one of your own. You know what I'm? Same thing for a woman. As long as you're traumatized by something, none of your relationships are going to going to sail into smooth waters. Everything's going to be bumpy. Just like a person I was dating, he didn't tell me about his issues. You know how you're just playing? I tapped him on his butt and it turned into a whole, you
Uh-huh.
know, we're about ready to have a throwdown. I'm like, oh my God, I didn't mean nothing by it. But you didn't explain that to me.
But that's not to cut you off, but that's what I mean by we don't know what will trigger somebody. You just simple tapping it behind. It might have been a sign of affection, but for him, it wasn't. This is what I mean by it is thoughtful that you do that. But like I said, you might be giving somebody some information that they don't know what to do with. And that's why they say, and that's why they'll think, why is she telling me this? I don't care. Because they're not interested in getting to know you to build a rapport. And that's the most difficult thing that we have to figure out is why is this person talking to me? Because I'm the type of person I'll walk up to a complete stranger and I'll start a conversation. That's because I like to talk. I
I'm
like
a
to get to know an
communicator.
individual.
I'm a
Say it
communicator.
again.
Before I would even go on
Yes,
David's show, I had to tell him who I was because, you know, you get on here, you're talking to somebody say, oh, I know that person for so, well, whatever. He knows who I am.
Mhm, mhm.
You know,
But
that's the thing. We have, as people, I'm a communicator. Now, do I say I give a person a complete detail of my life? No. I say, hey, these are the things. Like if I tell you that it's because of what happened to me when I'm young, and if you are an older guy that's with me and you start talking about you want a young girl, understand my reaction. So before you get to that point, I'm going to explain to you why I have these reactions. Do you understand where I'm
but
coming from now? It's the
what you have
conversations that
here
men
is,
and women need to have.
oh, I agree. But the problem is when you have a class
Oh, eat
of
up all my
people and ideals. So when you have a class of people and ideals, somebody's going to have to take a step back in order for the other person to advance. And when neither person is willing to take a step back, then you have a problem. And it's not a problem of understanding, it's a problem of who's trying to show up more. See, me, I'm willing to take a back seat to another person's story because I don't need to be front and center. So when a person needs to be front and center and they're unwilling to acquiesce to anybody else around them, then their ego has stepped in and not necessarily the person wanted to tell what the story is. And it's a very, just like the song, there's a thin line between love and hate. There's a thin line between meeting someone and offering your testimony and just meeting someone and just having a regular conversation. Like, does the ability for you, you said you're a communicator, does the ability for you to sit down and talk about anything not related to yourself exist for you?
Yes, a
Okay.
lot
I,
consists. That's what I'm trying to tell you. I will talk to
hold
you.
on, hold on,
But
hold
if
on,
we go past
hold
a
on, hold on,
certain
hold on,
point, you have to know who I am.
hold on, hold on,
Other than that, we'll never make
hold
it.
on, hold on, hold on, hold on. But that's what I'm talking about. You want people to know who you are. What I'm saying is this: is it possible for you to sit down and have a conversation about math? Just math.
Yes.
Okay.
You don't understand. I don't give everybody the
No,
conversation. And it's not a
Say it again.
conversation that comes up right away. You may not get that conversation from me for months until I know I can
No,
trust
but
you
that,
with that
no,
conversation.
but you asked me what I do when I meet people. Do I tell them about me? Sometimes they may know absolutely nothing about me, my name, my age, where I'm from. I can't tell you how many times I've had conversations with people and I never asked their name, never asked where they're from. Case in point, when I was in New York City this past weekend, there was a couple sitting there with a child. I just happened to ask them, so where are you guys from? They said Poland. They said, I said Warsaw. They was like, oh, I don't know anything else about them except they're Polish. That's what I'm talking about. The ability to just go out and have a conversation with random people about something completely random without actually even invoking anything about yourself. That's me. That's me in a nutshell.
I
I met
have
another female.
conversations all the time that don't have anything to do with me. It's only
Okay.
when I get into intimate relationships that I tell you about me. I said intimate relationships, friendships, things like that where we're in that we're going to be in close contact, and we may have issue, have conversations, understand why I feel that way, but I also want to know where you come from. We all have our own perspective, but in order
Mhm,
to if a man is going to deal with a woman, okay, a
mhm,
lot of people think women just walk around as bitter as hell, whatever. That's not what it always is. We all have some kind of trauma. Once a woman has
mhm.
gotten past that trauma, that's why a lot of people think it's attitude, or as David said, we have that like pretty much like we check out emotionally. It's not so much as that. We just know at some point that people are gonna people. If you understand what I'm saying, you're not gonna. You just like you said. Am I gonna talk about anything other than that? If I talked to this man prior before, and there's nothing about me. It took me until last week to talk to him about who I was.
Mhm.
So I'm not a topic. However, if we get to know one another, and I was in a relationship with you, there's some things I have to explain to you as to why there's non-negotiables in that relationship.
Well, everyone should have non-negotiables. I'll let me say that in this way. Everything we do is predicated on a relationship. Everything. I don't care what anybody
Mm-hmm.
else tells you. We have relationships with the food we eat,
Mm-hmm.
the things we do, the people we know, the places we go. So there's different phases of a relationship. There's the beginning, middle, and sometimes there's an end, and sometimes, well, there's always an end. The end could be death, dissolution of the relationship, or whatever the case is. The thing that we as people need to understand is, how do we build that relationship? And that's the most important thing, because once individuals start to get comfortable with each other, then you move on to the next step, and then you move on to the next step. It's like building a house. You This room, this room, this room. Okay, you know what? I think we need a second floor. So in making those steps to the second floor, what do I cover? What do we cover? What do we discuss? Because we may never make it to the second floor. We may never even develop a foundation upon which to build anything. And that's okay. We have to learn and realize and understand that we are not for everyone in every circumstance. Like, there's people that I have a rapport with at work, but that's where it ends. There are some people who I have a rapport with when I go to sporting events. That's where it ends. There are some people I call for information. That's where it is. And then there's some people I do all of those things with. That's our relationship. So we not only have a foundation, the first floor, second floor, we have a building. We have a building where we can go and we can talk about anything and discuss anything. Some people have never ever developed the ability to build a building with someone. And when you cannot build a building with someone, then you have to find out what you can build with them, and you have to maintain it. That's what I do when I meet people. Well, what what do me and this person have in common, and what can we maintain? Can we maintain just a business relationship? Okay, that's cool. Can we maintain just a friendship without anything else? That's cool. Can we maintain a sexual relationship without anything else? That's cool. Some people will say, well, why would you want to do all that? Because at my heart, I'm a complex guy. I always say I'm a simple man with complex thoughts and practical application of this thought. So I could take a simple thought, but then I can break that thought down, and then I can read it simple and say, okay, you know what? That goes there. That goes there. That goes there. And when I need to access them, I can take it out, use it, and then return it. Some people can't do that. And we have to understand a person's limitations. When you understand the person's limitations, dealing with them becomes so much easier. And that's where I am.
And that's what I spoke in the beginning, that you have to deal with people on the level that they're at. Also, that relationships is just what it is, ships. You have to know when to jump, when to get off. So what I'm saying is, I think the biggest problems between men and women is when we're having conversations. Do we actually hear one another? Do we understand one another? If a person leads you with honesty, you know what I'm saying? Like, that's what I was saying from the whole point. The person or people that I've dealt with in the past, you lead them with honesty. You lead them with your boundaries. But people are out here so full of self that they're not even being, the first step to anything, like I told you in the beginning, is truth, which is honesty. Second thing is communication.
Well,
Communication without comprehension means nothing.
Let me correct that. Truth and honesty don't necessarily share the same way. Want me to tell you why? Because I could tell you something from my vantage point, and it might be true for me, but it's not honest. I could tell a female that she's unattractive. Is that honest, or is that the truth?
That's from your opinion.
Bingo. Now, 4 plus 4 is the truth. Is that honest, or is that truth?
You said what now?
4 plus 4 equals 2. Is that being honest, or is that truthful?
That's not being either one. You
Why
said 4 plus 4 equals 2?
Yes.
That would be 4 plus 4 would equal 2, is what you're saying.
Yes. Is that me being honest, or is that truthful?
Neither one.
It's
Being
true.
dumb.
It's the truth. Now, do you understand what I'm getting at? You have some people who will weaponize them being honest because they want to get back at somebody. And it may not be somebody that did something to them. But if I go anywhere in the world and I say 4 plus 4 equals what? Most people are going to say 4. That's the truth. That's the difference between
You said 4 plus 4 equals 4.
I would say 8. I was like, what? That's why I was saying for a second. What was he trying to get to?
I'm like,
I'm sorry, 2 plus 2. My apologies if I missed
no,
that.
I was
I'm sorry, 2 plus 2.
yeah, I was like, that means they dumb as hell. Shit, what the fuck? Like, for real?
I'm sorry, if I misspoke, I meant 2 plus 2. Now it makes sense. Okay.
But
Yeah. That's why I was like, no, you're not being truthful nor honest. But
it all goes back to, again, that we talked about before, the attachment styles.
Yeah.
Some people are secure in the way that they had a good upbringing. It don't have to be 2 family homes. It could be a single family home, but they knew they were shown love. They were around the same individuals, and they were secure. They, everything was age appropriate. They felt good. They were comfortable as a child, and they were, went to the same places. They had a routine. So those individuals are able to kind of function better in relationships. They're secure with who they are. So if someone else is coming in a relationship talking reckless or showing something that you're, not willing to part with, eventually you'll say, yeah, this isn't for me because I'm secure with who I am. So there are individuals that's like that. Then you have the anxious or preoccupied. Those who establish the attachment style may experience a significant fear of being abandoned and need to be validated constantly. So you have people, they need validation on everything they do. And we're seeing it more now than ever on social media. People need validation. They post stuff for validation. Everything that they do, they're looking for validation. Look at me, people. This is what I'm doing. I'm crying out for help because I need to be validated. I need likes. I need
Mhm.
for people to show me love because, and they're all over the place. So they have that preoccupied attachment. Also, then you have the dismissive and avoidant ones. That someone with this attachment style may experience fear of emotional intimacy. This might lead to them to avoid getting too close to others. So some individuals is like uh, because of the way they were brought up, that they're not going to get too close. They're going to be very dismissive, or if they start feeling for someone, they probably self sabotage it so that they won't get close to the individual, and they try to avoid all those situations. It may be someone say, "I'm too busy. I'm working," uh, or instead of spending time with somebody, they may say, "I'm gonna pick up at work and work a double," or whatever the case is, because they've been in a situation that they've been taught to be dismissive of others, and they don't have that trust. They have a lot of distrust. Then you have fearful avoidance. I think those individuals want to be, they really want to have someone, but they probably, based on things that arise, that it never transpires. So let me see what it said. They make they crave attention and love from their significant others, but at the same time, they avoid emotional intimacy on their part. So they really not gonna put out like that, and they're not gonna show no emotion. They rather for that their partner probably to always make the first move or always show affection. So a lot of this stuff is transpired by how you were raised or the environments you were in. Because again, some people they don't, some parents maybe never hugged you, may never kissed you, may never showed you that comfort level. So this is the stuff that we're dealing with now as adults because some people, I don't do all that. Now I ain't holding hands. I don't like nobody touching me. That's weird. Like certain things. So you may have some guy that may be or woman that's secure in their situation, and she may be, affectionate, overly affectionate, and he like, yo, like back off, like, yo, you doing too much. She's always in my personal space. Maybe because he never had nobody, and I think Dr. Anwar has spoken that maybe had never had nobody that showed him love, or she never had nobody show him love. So we have to look at we have to look at people's past to kind of figure them out. And once you know a little bit about the past, and that's if somebody's willing to share about their mother, their father, if they're not willing to share and they keep all that as secret, then you'll find some down the road. You'll find out different things down the road.
Excuse me, my granddaughter's in there cracking up.
Yeah.
She-
Life is a good thing. I just hope she ain't laughing at me and Dave's hat, because then we have to get her.
No. She's watching a movie, and
Oh, okay. Yeah. Like,
it's just that I also have this thing. I don't know if it's like I said, I give people 2 chances, and the reason I do that, I'm not going to waste your time, and I don't want you to continue to waste mine. Peace is the greatest thing that I have in this life now. Huh?
You
I didn't hear
get
you.
one with me. You only get one with me.
But
depending on what the nature. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
But peace is the greatest thing that I have in life, and that came from dealing with those demons. So I refuse to let anybody take me back to where I came from.
Yeah.
We're all adults. At this point, it's no such thing as standards or he better. Honey, we have requirements at this age. We all know what's required at this age, what to do, how to handle ourselves. Everybody has a moral compass. If your moral compass doesn't match mine, then we don't align and we need to go our separate ways.
I was gonna say, because
that goes back to when you're not fit, when you're not healed, you'll stay in an unhealthy situation, hoping for that person to change or trying to fix them. That's why I say 2 chances is most time is all you're gonna get, because we're adults. We're adults. We're not here to raise one another. None of that. If I can't be your support system to help you be better because you don't want to be better, we can't be in this. And that's what people have to understand. Like, we are all here, whether it's a friendship, family, whatever, we're here to be a support system to one another. See, because tomorrow's not promised. Yesterday's gone.
Mm-hmm.
So if I can't help you, I damn sure ain't gonna harm you.
Right.
So that's the same thing I want in return. Mm-hmm. None of us are, nobody is anybody's property. So anybody has a right to walk away at any time. But for the time that you have with one another, be honest, be clear, be concise, be comprehensive.
Mm-hmm. I agree. This depending on what the nature of a potential transgression is. An individual only gets one shot with me. once you mess that up, I'm out. But like I said, that depends on the nature of the relationship and what occurred. I'm a misunderstanding is just that. I'm not gonna cast anybody out just because there's a misunderstanding. They haven't, and generally just because 2 people had different thought processes. And it's, that's not necessarily a deal breaker, but when people are violating, and I don't have standards, I have principles personally. So I have some principles that are non-negotiable.
And that's simple.
So
people are walking around living off of social media. Social media is not you or I. You meet somebody, you can't live off of what half of the people on social media is single, telling people about relationships.
Yeah. Well, I mean,
the only way you'll ever learn about a relationship is to do the work. Whether that's you, me, or the next person.
And that's what I tell people about therapy. That's why, when people talk about therapy, I say, look, therapy is good. Do not get me wrong. But you could talk about weight loss, but until you actually do something to lose weight, you ain't saying nothing but a self-fulfilling prophecy to me. So I don't want to hear what you're doing. I want to see what you're doing. And if you out here running and you change your food consumption, you're drinking more water, you're drinking less soda, and taking in all that extra calories, I'm gonna say, you know what? Keep going. Keep going. Yeah, but it does keep going, because I know how it is. I need to lose 70 pounds. Right now I'm about 273 pounds, give or take a pound. I want to get down to 210. That's going to be 65 pounds. So I got a ways to go. So I understand the struggle. That's why I always tell people, keep going. Keep going. As long as you got air in your lungs and you can move, keep going. Don't stop.
So yeah, it's it's a lot to all of this. So we have shit a great deal of challenges to deal with,
Mhm.
especially when when you're dealing with trauma in relationships, and and I think once those conversations open up and you find out about people, you have to make a choice whether you think you can handle it or not. You may say, "Nah, I've been in this movie before. I starred in this movie before. That's not what I'm looking to do." Now, granted, everybody is their own unique and different individual, so certain things may be similar. Sometimes people may jump the gun and say, "Oh, this scene, this is seem real eerie. This situation seems like the last person I dated," and they jump out of it without you know going deeper into it. But you only can go as deep as the information that they give you. So that's when, again, when we talk about, I mentioned about communication styles that certain people have. So when we think about communication styles, some people are passive
Mhm.
in their approach. They're indirect, self-denying, or apologetic. You have people, they apologize for everything. Uh, and you may say, well, what are you apologizing for? Like, oh, I'm sorry. They may not want, they may think they offended you by asking a certain question, and they may feel like, I don't want this person to be upset at me. So they apologize for everything. Uh, then, you have somebody that's passive aggressive, emotionally dishonest, and self enhancing at the expense of others. So they say little stuff, little indirect stuff, uh, that's aggressive, but it's kind of passive. So you don't know how to really take it, but they throwing shots. And
Like I told you about the Alice comments.
say that again.
Like I told you about the Alice comments.
Oh, yeah, yeah, that's true. And you have a lot of people that's passive aggressive on social media on posts. They say little things. And one of the things that I always laugh at when people say, "Who hurt you? Who hurt you?" I like
Mhm.
everybody's been hurt from something, but you 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 can't keep going with that. Who hurt you?
Nope.
You've been hurt because when you say stuff like that, I mean, like you infallible, like you never been hurt or whatever the case is. Now, granted, that person may have been through a lot, but have you unmasked or spoken on your pain based on you're basing a lot of stuff on how people respond. You can tell a lot by the way people respond, but that's not the whole picture. And then again, you have aggressive, inappropriate for some situations, blaming, controlling, direct, and attacking. And those people, they just aggressive, and that may be because of, again, probably your upbringing. This stuff don't come out of nowhere that you all of a sudden you start acting the way. It's patterns. You developed into the person that you are based on your environment and your experiences. So all it takes is somebody to be around. Shit, go to a family function, and you might say, "Oh shit, I see why they behave the way they behave." Like, damn,
Yeah.
damn, his mother out of control, or man, his father this or that. Uh, the only one that's sane in his family is his younger brother, or something like that. So it's a lot of dynamics that play into it, but people got to understand. But that's why conversations need to be had when you're dealing. especially with trauma, because guarantee everybody's been through something. Everybody's been through something. For the people say, "Oh, my life was just perfect. I had no issues or anything." I tend not to believe that. I just don't. I don't know how many
Not possible.
storybook endings you have.
It's not
I
possible.
will
And
say
then once you've experienced trauma, it's a lifelong journey of working through it. You know, you get better, but you never stop. You never stop working toward total healing. Because like it's some things that will trigger me, like I said. And those things are if you're being dishonest and you come at me and make it about me. Those things
Mhm.
trigger me. Not name calling, but the actual thing of playing victim, those things bother me with people. You know, you don't, we all adults, we do what we want to do, but when you're sneaky and conniving, you you think you're beating that person because they have trauma, but you basically re-inflict trauma in other ways because if they had a problem with people being dishonest, what did you just do? You revisited that to them. You revisit that on them. If that
Mhm.
person's not used to, if that person doesn't want to deal with a cheater, you're a cheater. You know, if you're a liar, you're a liar. You know, those are the things that we have to think about when dealing with people. It's not so much as it's all about you. It's about I tell you, if I tell a person who I am, this is so that we have that conversation so I know who you are.
Yeah.
You know, a lot of people I have a friend. She told me a guy wanted to come see her. And I said, well, you know, are y'all, you know, seeing each other? What's the story? And she said, well, you know, we for over 20 years she's known this guy. And every house she's been to that she's lived in, he's always come to visit her. So I asked her a question. Hell, have you ever been to his house? She said, no. So you never been to now one of his places in 20 years? She said, no, he's never invited me. And I asked her, why are you allowing him to come to your house to visit for the weekend? She absolutely in 20 years has never asked.
I was going to say some people, so and for a
She
lot of
knew the
women,
answer.
well, a lot of women are more comfortable being where they are than as opposed to traveling, especially if they have to do it alone and go to some place where they may not quote unquote feel safe. Now she may not feel safe in his home.
That's not
I
why.
know. Oh, okay.
It's not why. It's her lack of once again not having boundaries. He's had free range to do come in and out like he wants to. I asked her, why don't you ask him? She's afraid of what he'll say.
She trusts
But
being with him
me
more
as
than
a
she does
woman,
being with home.
me as a woman, we need to within a month of knowing you, I need to know where you live at.
Now, is that for anyone or just for a specific type of relationship?
Specific type of relationships. I need to know how you live. You see, because people worry about certain things. A person needs to know how you live because if you know how a person lives, you know how they treat themselves. You know, think about it. Think about it. You when you see how a person lives, you know how they treat themselves. Yes or no?
It's not necessarily true.
Some no, no, it's true.
It's
If
not
I invite you
necessarily true.
over and you if I come to your house and I got to step over something to get in your door that should have been picked up a month ago, 2 months ago, or I go in your kitchen, I slide through grease. Come on now. A person needs to know. Things like that tell you about a person. We don't think about certain things when
The,
we're dating.
the reason why
She
I
I
said
the
mean,
reason why I,
she said slide. She
the
said
re,
slide through
the
grease
reason
like
the reason why I say that is this. Currently, my home is in disarray. This room is a microcosm of where my life is right now. It's in disarray. I'm picking some things up, putting some things back in place. but that in no way, shape, or form will let an individual know how I treat myself. And that's why I'm saying that
You
women
say
have
your
a
house is in
propensity of
disarray. Is your house in filth?
no, my house is in filth, my house is in disarray.
Okay, a woman understands
However,
disarray.
however, there are some women who will equate that with how I take care of myself. That's why I always say if an individual walks in here, they be like, "Damn, Herb, your house is a mess right now." Yeah, I know. I got furniture sitting in my dining room. I got boxes all in my living room because I'm in transition to doing things. I got to redo the floors in my house, and I'm going to do them all by hand because to get a machine in here would just be a waste of time. That's why I would say, is a person going through a transition, or is that how that person always lived? Because you can take a snapshot of a person's life, and at the particular point, you can make an assumption based on that snapshot, and then you come back 2 months later and say, "Wait a minute, this picture doesn't look anything like this particular spot that this picture was taken from," and they'll say, "Because I was doing something." So that's why I always tell people, be slow to judge an individual situation until you get the totality of that individual. Because there might be a reason why that grease is on the floor. You got to step over there. There might be a reason why that thing is sitting there on the floor. And you got to step over it. He or she could have just relocated, but they're working 45 hours a week. They got to commute another 10, and they don't have the time. Their primary goal is to make sure that they're getting to work on time so they can keep their job. They're putting things together piece by piece. And when they get it done, they get it done. If they're not asking an individual for assistance and they're not doing what they're supposed to do, then you can make that assumption. But we have a lot of people that are, especially now with the economy the way it is, a lot of people are in transition. They're moving from one place to another. And heaven forbid if they have kids that need assistance, they're trying to get this kid into school. David just spoke about it at the top of the show. You got parents that are trying to enroll their kids in school. So what happens if you got a single mother or single father who just moved to another state or moved from another state? Their home is in disarray. They want to date because they feel the need to be complete. And some people say, well, they should be dating. Their life is in disarray. That may help anchor that person so they function better. We don't know what an individual ability is and how their abilities are enhanced until we actually say, okay, you know what? That person is a calming influence in that person's life. That person helps them to function better. That situation helps them to function better. And next thing you know, you come back 2 months later and say, holy shit, it's a world of difference in here. Well, I got somebody that calmed me down. I got somebody that helped me smooth out my manic states. Sometimes the best medicine we as people can have is another person. We don't always need to go seek therapy. Sometimes the therapy is, hey, I just need to talk to you for about 15 minutes. BGS talks about this emotional labor. Men provide it, and we don't recognize it until it's withdrawn. All of a sudden, you withdraw that emotional labor from an individual, and all of a sudden they become chaotic. They become frenetic. Their whole life is in disarray because they don't have that balance. They don't have anything or anyone to offload on. Hell, I do that with my brother. My brother does it with me. All of a sudden, it's like, okay, you know what? That glass of water that was held in, I put down. All of a sudden now everything seems calm. I can go back to doing the things that I was doing. That's why I always say, be careful, with judging anything at a particular point. Because I can catch a person at their low point. I can say, oh, nah, man, this house is messy. Now, if I'm going over there for 3 or 4 months straight, and when I come over there, your feet are on an ottoman, you got to cheer up and nothing is done, and it's looked like that for 2 months, then that's a safe assumption to make. That's all I say. But I'm willing to give a person the benefit of the doubt sometimes. That's my second chance.
That's your second chance in messy house.
So shout out to BGS for joining. He said, I guess in regards to Lasagna, your comment about your friend, that he says she wants him to stay, or what does he do for her that makes her stay, uh, or she's addicted to him.
Mhm.
I won't say she's
That's why I was
addicted.
saying.
This is let me. This is someone that hasn't dealt with her trauma.
Mhm.
She stayed. This guy's been in and out of her life, like I said, for 20 years. She was with someone else in between the time this guy's been in and out. But this person, it's her life story, so I won't go into detail.
Uh-huh.
But she just has not picked up self love yet. She allows the same kind of people to manipulate and use her. And then I'm the one she comes to and say, hey, so and so did such and such, and I can't do it anymore with you because I keep explaining to people you're gonna keep repeating the same experiences till you find out what in you that keeps allowing it.
And that's exactly what BGS is alluding to. And I was just going to say, some people are afraid of change because that means they'll have to actually do something and take them into a new realm, which they're uncomfortable with. She would rather be in dysfunction because that's normal to her as opposed to be in something that functions better.
And I remember being in that state of mind when I didn't have self love and I didn't want to be honest about who I was. And I was walking around with the mask on. All the pictures I used to post, you would think I was the happiest person in the world. But behind that smile was the greatest pain of all.
Yeah, and that's real. Wearing that mask, people people tend
I
to
love you.
people tend to carry on with that as long as possible because
I'm sorry. I was telling my granddaughter good night. You take my
yeah,
glasses. No, no. Good night. I love you. Not good night. No.
BGS said take the L and go through the withdrawals.
Man,
And
it's so much easier. Grandma, can I stay up a little longer? No, honey. It's just Monday night. No, no breaking the rules. A few more minutes. No, ma'am. Please. Please. We're not doing this just because you see me on camera. You know the difference, Maya.
Can I get a large pizza with red sauce, grilled chicken, and pineapple?
Sounds like
yeah,
somebody's getting their eat on.
Can I have a
uh,
I,
well,
I have to laugh because I was rushing dinner and everything before I came on too. You know, work, school, still have everyday life. So I think that
yeah, and I
too makes a
know.
difference in people.
Yeah, so people have a lot. People have a lot going on in their worlds with work, school, children, grandchildren, and all that stuff. And sometimes you don't you don't get the chance to be the best that you could be for others unless and until you start balancing things out. Yeah, sometimes life don't permit you to do that. But the one thing I can say is that if you don't get to that point to have some type of balance, things become unhealthy when you go check in with your doctor and this and that is going on and all these different ailments is going on and you think about it, you know where it's all coming from. And I always say, and for me, I've slacked up. I used to be on it for a while. I was on it with my appointments, with my health wise. Then we start slacking up and we let the imbalance kick in. Oh, it's too much going on at work and all that stuff. But then you think about it, it should never be too much going on at work for you to go check in to make sure you know that you're functioning well or follow up with blood work and stuff like that. Again, we can't help nobody else if we're not doing what we need to do. And
Exactly.
when you physically wore out and you're going through certain things, you're not good for anybody. If you're somebody that suffered through back pains and excessive weight, shit, you're gonna be miserable most of the time. You ain't got nothing for nobody really. You ain't in good spirits, and
Nope.
it's
So
just life.
like I said, I live life differently now. I try to make every day a holiday in my life. I don't have to worry about making it a holiday for nobody else because I wake up every day grateful because I told you where I came from. I told you what I'm doing now. And that right there within itself makes up for a lot of the things that I went through because I'm giving that to me. Things, when things happen to you growing up, you lose your identity for a minute, you know, and then you get married or whatever, and you become someone's spouse or someone's parent. You don't have an identity anymore. So I'm thankful for the identity I have now.
That's good. You gotta roll with it. You gotta take it back. You gotta own that and roll with it. And sometimes you have to be stern on your approach and let people know, like, the non-negotiables. I don't tolerate this. Or I'm not going for that because people will try anything. Or you can just feed people with a wooden spoon. I love feeding people with a wooden spoon.
Mhm.
Um, I'm only gonna let you. I may only let you get this close, or I'm not gonna give you everything. And I guess if you could break through that and get through it, then it could be something special. But you just don't give everybody everything right off the bat. And I'm not
No,
saying that you should just be cold, cold in distance. Obviously, if you out in the dating world, you want to open, you want to have to be able to open up some things for some people, because other than that, what's the point? You're not being your best self if you just go in there guarded and all that stuff, because it seems like it's being forced. Well, let me get back out there, start dating. But nope, I'm not doing this. Nope, I'm not doing that. I'm not sharing this. I'm not sharing that. So really, where do you think that's gonna really go?
nowhere. As far as myself, I've never been one to just like say get out there and date. Like I wasn't even in. I guess the last relationship, I don't really get mad about it. You know what I'm saying? I say what I say about it and keep it pushing. A lot of that was me because I met that person a month after my sister died. I had been on the road by myself, and a lot of things that played in my head. My sister died in my arms, so I was. I ain't gonna say I was extremely vulnerable, but I was kind of lonely at that moment, missing my sister. You know, but I also have the sense and sensibility to know when shit don't work, you just get your ass on.
This is true. This is true.
I guess I have a detachment game just as hard as anything else now in my life. But that comes from being trauma bonded to people. The longer you stay somewhere you're not supposed to be, that becomes a trauma bond. Because you're trying to fix it. Y'all keep putting band-aids on it. You keep bleeding, they keep bleeding.
Yeah, and I think when I look at all of that stuff, I always just go back to what my grandmother says: got to do right by each other. And if you can't do that, then what would be the what would be the point? Uh, and and I know we all make mistakes and may not always do the right thing, but I think overall you wanna lean towards, is this the best interest of for our situation, or maybe not. And I think that's the same thing when you're dealing with children. You always ask, is this the best interest of the child? And a lot of times we don't think on that level. We kind of, might be in that selfish mode. Like, I don't give a damn what. This is what I'm going to do, and this is what's going to be gratifying to me, and you do it. We all guilty of that sometimes. I
Yeah.
don't know. It's a lot, and we wonder why. We didn't have broadcasts about this before. Like, why are relationships so complex? Because it's so much. I mean, if everybody went into the situation with a smile and like chipper and all that stuff, how would it be? Would that be a monumental collapse, or what do
Good
you do?
question. Good question.
How do you figure it out? What do you wait on to say? I don't know. It's just it's crazy. And then a lot of people, if you sift through social media, you'll see people saying, I'm stepping away. They're not putting their best foot forward because they worried about all the different results, and they see the videos, the memes, and all that stuff put out there. So I think right now a lot of people probably at being cautious, at a cautious state with everything that they do. So I guess how much fun is that too for people when you're always at a cautious state of
Yeah.
concern?
I think
I
I'm
don't know.
cautious, probably not just in relationships. All my relationships, I'm cautious in. If you get to draining too much of my energy, uh, I'm a pretty much like ease away from you, because I feel like this. We all know what our problem is. If you don't try to look for a solution, then you just, some people like the drama that their life is in. So yeah, I separate from anything that drains me, that that takes away from my peace.
Yeah, I think at the end of the day, that's what many people lean towards, like removing things that's going to interrupt their peace. So it's it's a lot, and I know we've been talking for a while, and I know me, I'm about to gonna get ready to shut it down. And again, I always say these conversations, they evolve. They're never ending because it's always something that you could take from it and build upon another conversation. So we're gonna get ready to close it out. These days is be long and grueling for me. So any
You're
closing
here
comments? We'll go with you, Lasagna. Anything you want to close out with?
with me
No, just
or
closing
with
comments
her.
with no, with the theme of everything we talked about. Anything you want to close the conversation with, that you want to lead the audience, or when people go back and look at a replay, that the replay of which you want to conclude with your statement.
Hmm. I would say
Uh,
do the work on yourself in order to have a healthy relationship. Work on you. Oh dang, my phone died. Girl, this thing is just a clicking over here. Dang, your phone died.
Mute that.
I got nothing to add, man. Other than either you putting a brick in the wall of conversation or you're taking a brick out of the wall. Me, I'm taking bricks out of the wall. I don't believe in stymieing conversation. That's it. That's all I got to add. I'm a leader. I'm a leader. Rest. I'll explain later.
For me, trauma is gonna be trauma, and I always say it's the way that you deal with it. You can let it consume you. You can let it control the rest of your life. Uh, and you could eventually end up stressing out and dying and never dealing with it. But best believe we all been through shit that somehow, some way you have to figure it out. And you have to find those times to have that happy median in life. Because other than that, we see there's products, you see the people that's miserable with every interaction, everything that they do. I've been through trauma. Shit, work is trauma
Mm-hmm.
with some people. All it takes is one toxic person to come in there. That's trauma that you dread getting up and going. But do you let that define you? Or do you find a way to wiggle around it to try to have a balance to say, hey, I'm gonna live another day, and I'm gonna go ahead and go in there and make my paper and stab out of there and get out of
Yeah.
there and just do what you got
Yeah.
to do.
Yep.
And I think that's the bottom line. It's the way we respond to something. If you keep responding the same way, you're never gonna get over trauma. But if you figure out certain things that make you happy or provide motivation, then by all means utilize it. Utilize it. You got to do what you got to do because at the end of the day, you have to have a healthy balance. But try, as they say, cancer kills, trauma kills.
Mm-hmm.
Trauma kills. Trauma leaves stress, mental health, and people. And I always keep talking about it. And one of the things a lot of women say, "Oh, it's just my anxiety," and I say, "You depressed?" And they say, "I'm not depressed. I'm not." I say, "Anxiety leads to depression. When you start having
Yeah.
preoccupied thoughts about everything and you worried about stuff like that, when people
Yep.
worry, you're not happy. You're sad. So you're going through depression." But I think people only look at stuff on one way, like when you're depressed, like you're balled up under covers, you're not going to work, or you just like in somewhere in the room and it's complete darkness. No, you could go to work every day and doing all this, but you sad inside,
Yep.
and that's what we have. We have a lot of people that's sad inside. They hurting inside, but you may not know it on the outer look unless you get to know the inner person. I know that's a long closing comment, but marinate on that shit. When y'all say it's just my anxiety. You're depressed and you're sad inside. It we all go through it. We all go through it. So at the end of the day, it's the way you handle stuff and the way you move, which will determine a lot of the outcomes. So that's that. With that said, we out. On to the next one. See you next time. Keep dropping the posts in the counselor's corner. And everybody, it's that time. It's May. It's May. Cuffing season and all that stuff. It's over. People about to be on the prowl. What is it? Sundress season and all that is coming. So people coming. You could be the finest thing, but you could be very sad inside, or you could be a guy that's walking around like you cock diesel and you full of confidence. But once you meet that person, you're like, he's such a sad individual. He's hurting inside. He posts all these pictures. He's doing all these, like he's doing all these events and got all of this going on, but he's really a sick person inside. There's people out there like that. I don't mean to laugh like that, but I just know that like the charades that's going on in this world. You know, I'm mad.
Yep.
one of my professors already told me years ago, David, you don't got no poker face, so it's all written all over you. Like if I don't like you or it's some disdain, you gonna see it in my face, and I'm
And
probably gonna let
sometimes
you
that's
know in
what,
a certain
hey,
way.
sometimes that's what you got to do.
Go ahead.
Sometimes that's what you got to do.
Yeah, that's facts. So that's life. So I hope anybody listening take heed to that. This ain't from no journal article or anything. This is real life situations that we're talking about these subjects. And some of you, I know you can relate to it because we all go through it. We all go through trauma. But at the end of the day, it's how you handle it and the people and the support systems that you put around you to make your days better. And that's what you need to do. Find people to make your days better. Some of y'all keep hanging. How the hell I'm gonna hang with somebody they in trauma? Everybody hang with they in trauma all at the same damn time. That's a freaking train wreck. So you gotta find some people that's can pull you up instead of dragging you down. All right, we out. On to the next
All
one.
right, people, y'all
Peace,
take care.
everybody.
See you next week.
All right, peace.